Hello everyone and welcome back to another round of Tuesday Night Legacy. Tonight we have one back from early February. We have Naya Mawverick versus 8cast. Before we jump into those matches though, let's take a look at the deck lists. On the left, we have Ben playing his Naya Saga Mawverick deck. Now, this is a Maverick deck, just like most other Maverick decks. You're running 4 Green Sun Zenith to put your Knight of the Reliquary into play to be able to find you all sorts of fun, different kinds of lands that are going to advance the board state for you. Say you have an opponent who's running a bunch of non-basics. Then you're grabbing the Wasteland. Mostly, you're grabbing the Urza Saga, so you can go and make those big boys, the construct tokens, and grab your Shadow Spear to run over your opponent by putting a bunch of artifacts into play. Interesting strategy. We'll see if it comes up. Ben has chosen the Aethersworn Canonist here as a 3-of to combat our very combo-heavy meta at the store, as well as running 2 mainboard endurance and 2 sideboard endurance to deal with any kind of Thassa's Oracle decks. And then the namesake of the deck, the Mawloc, came to us from the Warhammer set, and it's basically a fighting creature that you can pay X into. You can still Green Sun Zenith it for a 2 fight, but if you have it in your hand, it's even better and can kill all sorts of creatures and actually exile them from play. So very, very utility-driven card here, which is a welcome addition to the deck. And on the right, we have Eric playing 8cast. So this is a pretty textbook 8cast list. We are drawing a bunch of cards by playing a bunch of 0-cast artifacts. Mistress Bauble, Mox, Opal, Lotus Petal, Chalice of the Void sometimes. This also, of course, has the Urza Saga package, which allows you to go and get the very good grindy cards, such as Retrofitter, Foundry, and the Shadow Spear. But it also runs a mainboard Aether Spellbomb to get you out of trouble in case you need to return a creature to owner's hand. This deck, of course, is trying to win through either casting a ton of 0-drops and making 1,000 Thopters with the Master Thopterist, or it's just trying to get Kappa Canoneer into play because this card ends the game by itself in like 2 turns. The last piece of fun tech in this deck is, of course, the Otawara Soaring Sea, which does a great impression of the Brazen Borrower, or the Petty Theft spell, which allows you to return a thing to owner's hand. Sometimes it costs more because you don't have a ton of legendary creatures in play, but if there was a deck to support the legendary creature clause, this would be it, with the Master Thopterist and Emery Lurker of the Loch. Now that we know a little bit more about the decks, let's get into those matches. Been on the play here, starting with a Windswept Heath into a Green Sun Zenith. Green Sun Zenith for 0, of course, always grabbing the Dryad Arbor. So being able to fetch up the Windswept Heath, or the Savannah into the Dryad Arbor, giving you a little bit of ramp. Eric basically drops his entire hand. We're seeing 3 baubles of some sort or another. We have Urza's Baubles and 1 Mistress Bauble, and Mox Opal that was able to turn on the Emery Lurker of the Loch, putting a bunch of cards into the graveyard. If this creature does untap, then it will be able to cast all sorts of artifacts from the graveyard, basically choosing 1 artifact per turn. And being able to cast it from your graveyard. We see the Mishra's Bauble activations happening here. Eric getting to draw 3 cards. A Green Sun Zenith for 2 is going to just go get a natural Mawloc, which is enough to kill the Emery, and it is exiled. I don't know if it's going to come up. Eric did just put it into the graveyard there. I think we're having somebody on the sidelines here. Hey, let me see that card. Yeah, it's a real good one. Mawloc doing a really good impression of a removal spell as well as being able to pressure your opponent. And we're seeing that Retrofitter Foundry hit the field. And a Chalice of the Void on 1. So we have 1 cast spells that are now countered. This is going to hurt probably Ben way more than Eric. I don't think Eric actually runs any 1 cast besides the Retrofitter Foundry, which he just dropped into play. He does actually have the Shadow Spear, but he might be searching that up with the Urza Saga that's about to go off here. Seeing 2 damage come across with that Mawloc. And 2 more mana, 3 more mana actually, is going to get that Knight of the Reliquary. Very good card. We do have the Gaia's Cradle in play, which is going to be generating a lot of mana. Of course, Naya the Reliquary is, its only drawback is that you can only sacrifice a forest or a plains. Luckily, Ben has a lot of forests / plains. Seeing Psymaster Thopterist come into play here, that's going to start generating a lot of blockers for Eric. A Thought Cast is going to get him a second Thopter off of that Lotus Petal that he cast. Until Ben can find his own Shadow Spear, giving his creatures trample. He's probably going to get Stonewall pretty hard here with all of these Thopters in play. Eric pretty happy with the situation that we're in. Just a Mishra's Bauble to look at the top card of the library, getting to draw, refill the hand a little bit. So Eric passed on getting that first construct since he does not have 2 open mana. Seeing Ben float that 1 mana to get his own Shadow Spear. I believe it's the only 1 cast. Oh, no, that's right. He's got the Haywire Might, which is going to be able to exile a non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. Probably in this situation, we're going to be targeting the Retrofitter Foundry, I'm guessing. Attack. No, there's no way he's attacking for 1. This has got to be mana. Green mana is going to exile the Retrofitter Foundry and turn 1 of those Thopters. Oh, yeah, that's right. Making those Thopters, that's so good. Sacrifice a Thopter and make a 4/4 construct. So, yeah, Ben had to fire that off right then and there, or else he was going to be dealing with a board of 4/4 construct tokens. That would have quickly gotten out of control. Although we do see the Knight of the Reliquary already doing work here, turning a Dryad Arbor into a Wasteland. And growing the Knight of the Reliquary, of course. The one thing I forgot to mention, probably one of its top qualities, is that it gets +1/+1 for each land in the graveyard. So it is currently a 5/5. Think we're seeing a Wasteland for the Urza Saga on Eric's side, making that a 6/6 now, and then dropping that Aethersworn Canonist into play. Although not as useful against Eric, since all he's doing is casting artifact spells here. Seeing the Lotus Petal, gets another Thopter. Counting up his mana, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then if this is the Kappa Canoneer, it does cost 6, but we can, yes, convoke, or rather improvise, which is convoke for artifacts. Getting another Thopter into play, using all of his mana except the Lotus Petal, and then attacking for 4 in the air. Holds back the 4/4. Not 100% certain why. Maybe just to have a blocker that he's not scared to throw away if he needs to. But we have shut off the Swords to Plowshares for Ben and his own Shadow Spear. So unless he can get rid of that Chalice of the Void or do another Urza's Saga. All right, so a Mawloc with 3 counters came in and targeted something. I think he was going for the Kappa Canoneer, but then Kappa, whenever an artifact enters the battlefield. So I guess he made a Thopter somehow. Sorry, I missed that piece of interaction there, but basically what it says is if it... but no, it's got Ward 4. That's not even the relevant text. So I'm not sure what happened with that Mawloc, but he does have a 5/5 Mawloc. Untapping, drawing. Yeah, Ben is in a pretty tough situation here, even with that Urza Saga. I think he's going to be 1 turn off. We're seeing massive swings here. Going to chump the Knight of the Reliquary, so that's 3, 5. Yeah, it's not enough. So Ben concedes. We are on to game 2. Same play as before, except it's a Taiga instead of a Savannah. Green Sun for 0. Eric throwing some 0 cast artifacts into play. Getting Emery online. Getting some, at least one Urza's Bauble into the graveyard, or Mishra's Bauble. and a Force of Will. All we're going to do is put an Urza Saga into play and pass the turn. No reason to attack into an Emery. 3 mana is going to get a Psi Master Thopterist. Probably turn the Emery on. Oh, we're seeing the Lotus Petal here. Casket the Thopter. Mox Opal. Another Thopter turns the Mox Opal on. So we have 2 mana. A Shadow Spear. This is going to create another Thopter. This is a very explosive turn too. And then we're going to activate the Emery. Probably grab a Bauble. And we're going to see 3 mana Endurance in response to the Emery targeting. I believe that's how that works. Choose an artifact. Yep, target artifact in the graveyard. And you may cast it this turn. So choice is made. That's interesting. So it's just tap, and then I guess you respond with the Endurance, which is going to shuffle away the graveyard. Seeing an Ignoble Hierarch tapped off of the Dryad Arbor, attacking in for 4 with the Endurance. And that's going to be a Swords to Plowshares for the Psi Master Thopterist in response to the Urza's Bauble. Casting the Urza's Bauble from grave after seeing the final card in Eric's hand or in Ben's hand. 1, 2, 3, 3 damage, 4 damage in the air because of the Shadow Spear. And Bauble generating that extra advantage from the Emery. Trying to decide if Ben wanted that Construct token. He decided that he did not. We're going to see the Shadow Spear this time, so things can lose Hexproof and Indestructible, but not Ward. So this does not help against Ward creatures like Kappa Canoneer. We're going to see it equipped onto the Endurance, which is going to give it Lifelink and Trample, which is going to be probably the swing, even though they both have a Shadow Spear in play here. Since the Endurance is just a larger power toughness, it's going to overwhelm the Thopter in a bit here. We're seeing another Endurance in response to the activation of the Emery, losing that Urza's Bauble, and no attacks. A Minsk and Boo. That's going to turn the tide even more so in Ben's favor, unless Eric can deal with it right now. So we're going to give +3 counters, put 3 counters on up to 1 target creature with Trample or Haste. The Endurance currently has Trample, so legal target. Crashing in for 7, 8 damage. This Endurance is going to pick up the game really quick here, I think. We're seeing another Psi, which is going to make more Thopters. But, I mean, we need to deal with this Endurance right now. Because I think he can just throw it, too. It doesn't matter that it's not a hamster at the moment. Well, 7 Thopters, and one of them a 2/2 with lifelink. And he can make the Construct. So he's just going to throw it at him. So that's 4. Oh, no, that's enough. Yeah, there's a Petty Theft. Because of how Minsk and Boo is worded, the -2 tick down, you actually do have a chance to respond before the sacrifice a creature. So the Petty Theft is going to return target creature to hand, or return non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. So the -2 happens, and it's back in hand. We see a Wasteland, getting the Urza Saga, preventing Eric from getting any more value off of it. 2 mana is going to drop a Green Sun Zenith for 1 into play. 1, 2. Maybe it was that Taiga. Yeah, I think he didn't use that extra mana. So now Collector Oof, an extremely good card against the 8 cast deck. Activated abilities of artifacts cannot be activated. So we cannot activate. Although maybe a slight misplay on Ben's part, because that means that he can't activate his own Shadow Spear to equip to that Endurance anymore. So Eric kind of maybe has a chance to get back in this game. I'm not sure if the right choice is to swing all your Thopters at Minx and Boo just to make sure that he's out of there. A blocker with Endurance. Yeah, 4 Thopters at Mince. Blocks with 1 for the Endurance, takes 3. Still has the activation of the Emery. Casting a Mox Opal into the field. So basically getting extra Thopters. Birds of Paradise pass. So Eric's Thopter is not big enough to get past that Endurance. Yeah, as we see here, really needed that trample to get past all of these blockers. So we're seeing crashing in for 7. Endurance. Is that a 3rd Endurance? No, it's the Endurance that was returned to Eric's hand. Blocking the Thopter with the Shadow Spear, so now no one has Shadow Spears. Although Eric says, I will pay life to dismember that Collector Oof. It is that important to me. Casting the Lotus Petal. Yeah, because you can't even use Lotus Petal because it doesn't say mana abilities. Mana abilities are still okay. 2 mana to the Endurance. That's going to crash in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the Ignoble Hierarch. So Eric in a tough spot here too. I think Sai has a big butt 5. So it's a 2/5. And that's a 5/6. So he could survive here. But he's also generating all those Thopters off of Sai. So he sacrificed 2 artifacts to draw a card with the 2 mana. Decides to block and gain that life. All right, we have 6 Thopters, but I think Eric is once again on the back foot. Couple more turns of turning this Endurance sideways. Oh, 3rd Endurance. Oh my gosh, what a back-breaking play. So a Thopter equipped, and we're just seeing 3 Endurances turn sideways. I mean... So, I mean, what? Eric blocks 2 of them, and then he's trying to do the math to see if he can survive the 3rd one with the Shadow Spear. What are all these boys? Oh, I guess actually creating enough Thopters to show how blocks are going to happen. And a Force of Vigor? Wow. And so Eric loses his whole board. The Force of Vigor targeting the Urza Saga to take away any last hope. Getting the Shadow Spear back, though. Throwing a Chalice of the Void for like 4 down there and passing turn and conceding. So we are on to game 3. Eric with another huge opening play. Urza Saga into Shadow Spear, Mox Opal, and Lotus Petal. Ben fires back with the Wasteland, blowing up the Urza Saga. Eric having a 2nd Urza Saga. Casting that Thought Cast. Ben with his own Urza Saga off of this Bauble trigger here. Going to turn, playing a Wooded Foothills. Eric maybe going to start making an army here. Has that Ancient Tomb, which is going to net him 2 mana for 2 life. Kind of the perfect setup here because he's going to start making constructs off of that Ancient Tomb. Be able to equip them with the Shadow Spear into Mox Opal. This guy already huge. 1, 2, 3, 4. making a second construct. I mean, this is, unless Ben's got something perfect in his hand, this is kind of lights out. This is exactly where 8-cast wants to be. Oh, man, with the Grafdigger's Cage too, which is going to prevent being able to have creatures come into play from their libraries. Oh, that's a good one. Wow. Okay, we see a Force of Vigor, which is going to blow up both of those constructs. Force of Will says no thanks, and a red Elemental Blast for the Force of Will is going to say, no, I think this is going to resolve. That was insane. So Eric is out of gas, has a couple cards in hand, but all of those constructs that were going to ride him to victory, gone now. Ben with his own Urza Saga and a Knight of the Reliquary in play. Feels pretty good on Ben's side, because we are not seeing Eric drop anything else relevant life-wise into play. Knight of the Reliquary just turns sideways. Hits for 4. And did we see another red Elemental Blast? Ben making his own construct off of his Urza Saga. These constructs are a lot smaller, so they're just going to be 2 3/3s here once this artifact. But the Shadow Spear turns them into 4/4s. Well, one of them with lifelink and trample. Wow, what a massive swing. Oh, we're seeing it go on the Knight. So he's going to be crashing in for 6. 6 lifelink. Otawara is going to return it to hand, though. So enough mana to get that creature to return. So only taking 3 damage there from that construct. Eric down to 4, putting a Psymaster Thopterist into play. Hope he has at least 1 0 drop in hand. 2 more mana is going to equip the Shadow Spear. I thought Shadow Spear was equip 1. No, it's equip 2. And that's going to get 1 Thopter into play because of Chalice of the Void. Going down to 2. Oh, man. So 3/3 turns into a 4/4. So I guess Psy lives. Oh, but the Mawloc. Mawloc for 5. Absolutely decimating that 1/1 Thopter. Blocking the Flareon. Gaining 2 life. So down to 1. Woo-wee. So I wonder if Ben had blown up that Psy instead of the Thopter, and then he turned it sideways. I think that would have been slightly better. I'm not sure what Ben was playing around there. I mean, it must have been something. Since Psy was a 2/5. And Mawloc with 3 counters, and it's a 2/2. Well, Eric is super in the tank about this since he's staring down so much damage. You know, we can make a couple blockers if he's got 0 cast. Looks like he's looking at a Petty Theft there, a Brazen Borrower. But he can't activate his Ancient Tombs. So he only has access to Petty Theft. He's trying to decide if he can survive. He's basically going to have to bin Mawloc. Oh, wow. He goes for the mana off of the Psy instead of the Petty Theft. Yeah, because he was at exactly 0. And so he just concedes. So we're looking after the game here. Both of the players actually put down the sideboard cards that they brought in. So we see that Ben had brought in 3 of the blasts of the red variety, being able to counter blue spells. His Collector Oof and the 2 Force of Vigors. All of these cards we did see during the match, which was able to win him the game definitely in that game 3 there. And on Eric's side, we see the 2 Brazen Borrowers, the 2 Dismembers, and the Grafdigger's Cage. So both of these players were able to see all of the sideboard cards that they wanted to, but it looks like the raw advantage of being able to win that back and forth in the middle of game 3 was what really did it for Ben and was able to take the game 2-1. Thanks for stopping by. I'm glad that you're still here. If you enjoyed the video and it's your first time here, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date on all of our cool stuff. If you want to know what these deck lists are, there's always a link to both decks in the description of the video, and there's also a link to the Instagram where you can see the visual deck lists I used at the beginning of this video. Thanks as always to Spellhold Games. We wouldn't exist without you. Thank you for allowing us to record in your play space, and hopefully next week we'll have some very exciting news. So that's going to do it for us for this week. As always, I've been Eugene, and this is Tuesday Night Legacy. We'll see you next time.